Oh man, how's it going there?
I am doing all right. Just sharing the link around, which I have in the past been very bad about, but
Yeah,
trying to
I
make
try
up.
to put all the appropriate hashtags and all that.
Neither of us does this full time, so it's kind of like,
Yeah,
mid level amateur hour for both of us. I love that picture, though, that thumbnail you've got for the show. That's fucking perfect.
yeah. I don't know about you, but I
Like,
don't think
yeah,
that's a deer.
no, I'd imagine not being up on both legs like that.
Right,
Pretty fucking awful.
pretty terrifying.
All right, so let's go live. See if we can get Chris in here. Let her know about the show. Here we go. Going live.
Do you think conventionally, anything would actually kill this deer?
Conventional weaponry. I think it would depend a lot on sort of the source mythology utilized for the construction of this particular SCP file, because there's a wealth of options when it comes to what source mythology could potentially serve as the basis for this particular anomaly confronted by the Foundation.
Mm.
With that said, Brother Cortex, would you like to give the audience a brief introduction to Secure, Contain, Protect?
So the brief introduction to contain, protect. Sorry, just waking up from a nap, but um, essentially the SCP Foundation, as we just stated, secure, contain, protect, are an organization better known as the SCP Foundation, which contain entities such as the Not Deer and many others like it, also known as others known like Peanut, Shy Guy, what have you. And the means that they contain these entities, some unknown and usually redacted in their briefings, but let's just say they're good at what they do most of the time, but not all the time. And with that being said, these entities may or may not be contained.
Yes, it is the mission statement of the O5 Council, the governing sort of board of elders and occultists who are in charge of the Foundation, to defend humanity and the planet, to defend the world and reality itself from otherworldly anomalies. These are
Hmm.
creatures, items, and sometimes whole scale events that can alter the very fabric and nature of reality itself. They maintain the facade of all things being A-OK, green light situation normal. We all
Hmm.
know underneath the surface, if you stare too long into the shadows of the world in which you live, you will find that the fabric of reality is not so much a solid wall as a tepid and somewhat chilly, icy sheet. There is over the world cast not so much a shadow as a black blanket. And it is the mission of the SCP Foundation to ensure that these otherworldly, supernatural, or occult creatures, events, energies, items, and objects of interest and power do not cascade and lead to the complete and utter destruction of reality or the illusion that we live under. in summation.
Yeah.
And if you think the X-Files were any kind of interesting material, then boy howdy, would you enjoy the available materials of the SCP Foundation, who actually make an allusion in their database to the X-Files, so that division of the FBI would actually contain its own interior sort of enforcement division known as the Office of, what is it? The Office of Anomalous Activities.
Mm-hmm.
But boy, they are rank amateurs when compared to the Foundation. The closest thing that the Foundation has to a counterpart would be the USGOC, the Global Occult Coalition, where the SCP Foundation attempts to locate, track down, source, and gather intelligence and information regarding these anomalies, and to secure them and to contain them, to protect humanity from them. The GOC's mission, by contrast, is to outright destroy these anomalies and to end the events surrounding them. Whereas the Foundation says, wait a minute, we don't know what the potential unintended consequences and cascade effects could be if we are to remove this creature or this series of events from the regular ecosystem of the world in which we live. They take a much more precautionary approach.
Yeah, I still think the humane thing would be to get rid of them entirely.
Yeah, the GOC is not necessarily wrong. It's
No.
there in accordance to the Codex of the Foundation and its material online. Bear in mind the SCP Foundation wiki or the website, their Codex. This is all. The entire thing is free public access. This is not owned. It is referred to as public commons. So all of the material within the SCP Foundation database can be freely utilized as foundational material for other storytellers to play around with. However, you cannot, as just an individual person, make up your own SCP Foundation entries. There is a formalized process for submitting a concept or an idea to the Foundation for its potential inclusion. However, it must be formatted in a very particular way. It has to be submitted as if it is a report from a field agent or a researcher from within the Foundation. So in order to understand how best to contribute to this collective commons project, you have to first become someone who's familiar with the material and who actually studies it and enjoys it enough to be able to properly format and construct your own SCP entry, which I find to be brilliant.
Yeah. Not everything's like all free willy-nilly when it comes to the SCPs. They're pretty well constructed.
Mm-hmm.
But man, oh man, the not deer.
Yes. Now, folks, Brother Cortex, our good hostess with the mostest, who's a little groggy from his nap. So,
A little bit.
I'm doing a little bit of a gish galloping to try and give you some time to get a little more awake and aware.
Yeah, that's why I'm trying to load up on the Coca-Cola here. Hopefully,
caffeine! Mainline it!
Yeah, literally.
That's not a drug reference, YouTube. Calm down.
Stick a straw in my nose from the Coca-Cola can.
Hey, you'll be like Nick Rekieta. Anyway, we're past the 10-minute mark. I can make these references and not give a shit. So, the not deer. In the past, we have on this show. Yes, I know, Paulie. I am getting old. That's what happens, brother. Razor Maiden. That's my buddy Paulie. Greetings and salutations to you, brother. Welcome.
Howdy.
Welcome from Western New York. I apologize that you have to live under the hellion harpy hag that is Kathy Hochul, but maybe someday soon you'll be able to get yourself and your family the hell out of there. But we have looked at various fascinating and elder statesman creatures of the SCP Foundation in the past here on the Deep Dives. And we are going to be taking a look at one of their more recent entries here today, SCP-6448, also known as Not Deer. I came across this newer entry thanks to my subscription to a fellow by the name of the Volgan on YouTube, whose entire channel is dedicated to these sort of theatrical presentations of read-alouds of SCP files as submitted by researchers. They are presentations from the perspective of either researchers or archivists or mission debriefers who may or may not belong to various MTF squadrons. MTF standing for Mobile Task Force. The Foundation utilizes and deploys various MTFs or Mobile Task Forces who specialize in contending against various types of SCP creatures and environments. Because sometimes an SCP isn't a creature and it's not an event, it's a location where the location itself, the region, is itself entirely anomalous and toys with the bounds and rules of reality itself. Many of those I find to be the most fascinating SCPs, particularly London Underground was one of my favorites from when I first start diving into the SCP Foundation.
Just giving a picture of the MTF there.
Yes. The MTF soldiers are not your typical special forces kinds of soldiers. These people might not necessarily be who you want to be behind if you were in a standard, traditional, conventional warfare setting. However, if you are contending with the supernatural, with the occult, with the paranormal, you want these guys between you and whatever's trying to eat your face, because they know how to contend with things that want to eat your face. Just saying.
MTF, definitely somebody you want around, even in a firefight. And if I'm not mistaken, aren't there certain MTF that aren't even remotely human?
Yes, there are several MTF teams that are special task forces that are comprised of themselves anomalous humans. People who, these are more often than not, these are SCP MTF soldiers who came into close and extended contact with anomalous environments and or a type of SCP known as a reality bender. When they are exposed long-term to an anomalous creature that is a reality bender or an anomalous environment that has numerous laws of physics altered, they tend to become themselves altered at a genetic and atomic level. These soldiers are, if they survive the assignment wherein they become anomalous, they are contained within the Foundation facilities and they are observed. They are examined for determining what exactly the extent and nature of their anomalous properties are. And then they are appropriately assigned to one of, generally speaking, 3 types of special MTF teams. The MTF Echo unit is comprised entirely of MTF soldiers who have obtained through anomalous contact psychic and or psionic abilities, the capacity to read minds and emotions, and or to telekinetically manipulate small amounts of matter and fling them. They can literally throw objects through the air. These are members of the MTF Echo Squadron. Then there is MTF, I'm trying to remember the name. I think it's MTF Lavender. I think it is. This is a team of all female anomalous humans who were previously researchers or members of other MTF squadrons who have all developed shape-shifting abilities as a result of their contact with a malfunctioning Scranton reality when they were trying to shut down or lock down London Underground. These female agents were in close contact with a Scranton reality anchor that was malfunctioning. It was only keeping the laws of physics stable about 50% of the time. And their extended contact with that device led to alterations in their genetic code. And they ended up picking up scraps and bits and pieces of genetic code from the various wildlife, including insects, in the area around London Underground. At first, these MTF agents, they were unable to control their shapeshifting, their metamorphizing. They would randomly have like beetle pincers or insect legs sprouting out of their sides, puncturing through their uniforms. It was kind of a mess. They were horrified, obviously, and confused. There is no exact nailed down cause for what caused the transformation, mutation, but it is hypothesized that their proximity to a malfunctioning Scranton reality anchor is what caused the mutation. And the only other MTF that is comprised entirely of anomalous humans that I can remember is MTF Epsilon. This is a team composed entirely of anomalous humans who are themselves mid-level reality benders. MTF Epsilon is only deployed against other hostile humanoid reality bending SCPs. That's their entire mission. When they are not deployed in the field contending with reality benders, they are effectively housed, is the polite term for it, at Site 19.
Housed.
Yes. Now, to give you an idea of how terrified the Foundation is of hostile humanoid reality benders, Site 19 has one of the most overkill control measures set in place. If at any point a member of MTF Team Epsilon goes AWOL, the entirety of Site 19 is to activate the 3 active nuclear warheads that are housed within the base.
Somehow I knew you were going to say nuclear warheads.
Yep.
Don't know why, but I had an indication that you
They're
were
not.
going to say nuclear.
Yep. The Foundation's not fucking around. And
Yeah.
now that's just if someone should go AWOL. In order to maintain the tangibility of Site 19, there are 2 Scranton reality anchors situated at each end, the north and the south end of the facility, for all 8 underground levels of the facility. To give you an idea of the sheer material expense, it has been estimated in some of the SCP lore that a single Scranton reality inhibitor, in order to produce and manufacture it, costs approximately $2 billion. They have 16 of these in that one facility to contend with 4 to 6 mid-level reality benders.
That is insane.
They're not screwing around. And
Yeah,
hey, you pulled up the Volgan video. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to. Just, for the sake, since we're doing the deep dive.
Yep.
So, do you want me to get into it?
Yes, please, sir.
Okay, here we go.
I've rambled on long enough.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Miller, and the SCP we're going to be looking at today is SCP-6448. Containment Class Keter, Disruption Class Kennick, and Risk Class Warning. Special Containment Procedures. Containment of SCP-6448 should be focused on investigation of deer exhibiting anomalous traits within and around the Appalachian area. All civilian sightings of SCP-6448 should be attended to by Mobile Task Force Gamma-4, Green Stags. Possible deaths resulting from SCP-6448 should be attributed to hiking accidents, and sightings are to be blamed upon chronic wasting disease. The Site-44 Cryptozoology Division is tasked with ongoing research into the not deer phenomenon. Should an SCP-6448 instance be captured, it is to be brought to Site-44 for containment and study. Description: SCP-6448 is an anomalous branch of the Cervidae family. All members of this group display heightened intelligence and are presumed to be sapient. Many specimens exhibit some form of physical malformation, causing them to stand out from non-anomalous deer. While the exact details of physical abnormalities differ between instances, repeat commonalities are as follows: legs bent backwards, barrel-chested or bloated abdomen, emaciation, eyes belonging to unrelated animals, forward-facing eyes, erratic movements, loss of fear towards humans, tendency to walk on two hind legs, general bodily disfigurement. Aside from physical disfigurement, instances show severe divergence from the behavior of other cervids. Namely, SCP-6448 are known to watch, observe, and stalk humans, often for hours or days. This includes following humans to and from their homes, wherein they will proceed to steal belongings, weapons, and food. Very rarely will SCP-6448 attack victims while they are indoors. SCP-6448 are most commonly encountered in deep woodland, particularly at night or dusk, when a person is alone. Any form of direct acknowledgement of SCP-6448's anomalous traits in these situations will always result in the victim's termination. In such situations, personnel are to observe the extract of service protocol attached to this file immediately. See below.
Man.
Just look at that image. Gorgeous.
Yeah. No.
Well, I say gorgeous, but you know what I mean.
No, man, like, I'm sorry, but if I had seen that, I would at least, like, take a couple shots at it. If that didn't work, then I guess, by all means, last round for me.
Right? Save one as a toe trigger.
Yeah, no kidding. The only thing I don't understand about SCP-6448 is, like, I get it takes the identity and or form of a deer, but why, like, all the disfigurement? Like, isn't it trying to mimic a deer?
Well, as Sam rightly points out here, with her mention of skinwalkers, this is one of the potential mythological origins or source points utilized for the construction of SCP-6448. And in most of the Native American lore that surrounds skinwalkers as a archetype of monstrosity, there is always a physical notable corruption because of the animus of the creature that is compelling it, the actual spirit of the creature itself. It mutates and corrupts the flesh it inhabits.
Right.
So yeah, just look at those teeth.
Yeah, literal jagged split bottom jaw.
It's like, I'm sorry, if you see that, like, I have two thoughts. First, kill it with fire, and second, I remember, like my Aunt Sally, like making me think that's what it looked like when she tried to give me a kiss because I was 5 years old. She was horrifying and had dentures that were like broken and snagged. But
Well, did she have antlers?
no, but she wasn't a lunatic.
Yeah, I think fire would probably be the more effective thing here. Maybe like if you had a shotgun, you had dragon's breath. That would be probably pretty effective. I would think.
Call Johnny Blaze. We need the Hellfire shotgun.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's pretty much essentially what dragon's breath is it ignites on fire when you shoot something with it. So
Yeah. And do we want to proceed, or are we good
Oh
for
no, I was
side
just
note?
Yeah, let's go. If you want to do the side note.
Okay. Once again, referring to Scuba Sam, I'm bringing up the rather popular and somewhat better known mythology of the Skinwalkers. There are several tales in Native American
Hold on.
lore.
I just want to say one thing. Her and I were
What?
talking about this beforehand about it being a skinwalker.
Yeah.
That's what my initial thought was a skinwalker as well. Just kind of how it acts and how it approaches targets.
Yep, there's a strong tie in there to Native American mythology and tales. Thank you, Flame Tree Publishing. There is a story of a Native American or a Navajo hunter by the name of Byronofsidius. Navajo hunter who, in the days of the, quote, Pales of the East, European settlers, he sought out a great spirit to seek wisdom and counsel in order to save his lands from these invaders. After 8 days of wandering in the wilderness, after going on a dream quest to try and locate the spirit or gain guidance from the spirit realm, Byronofsidius discovered a strange hole of fire in a woodland pathway, just this hole in the ground that was leaking flames. And he sensed a great power coming from it. And when he approached, a spirit spoke to him from within the fire with promises of wisdom and power to save his lands in exchange for his soul. Byronofsidius thus became one of the first skinwalkers of his era in the pre-revolution time frame. There are a number of conflicting stories and myths that say that there had been skinwalkers for centuries stalking the lands of the Navajo and the Apaches, but that they had gone underground when they became identified and known. That there were various ways that these tribes began sharing knowledge about the skinwalkers and what to look for, how to identify them as not what they appeared to be. There are a number of myths that they find their sourcing in the practices and the cultural adaptations of any peoples. One of the most common practices of Navajo hunters was when they would kill a deer for meat, they would skin it and they would cure and tan the hides, and they would wear the hides as protection against the elements. Some few subsets of these tribes would not remove the antlers from the head of the deer before wearing it. And they would go about on a hunt because they believed this would add to the illusion that they belonged in the environment and allow them to get closer to their prey when they were on the hunt for food. This is a cultural practice that could have ended up getting mixed up with people's observing what looked like man-like deer moving about in the wilderness. If you didn't know that hunter, you might be terrified and take a wild story back to your tribe saying, there's a thing out in the woods that's not a deer, but it looks like a deer and it has weapons and it tried me. Well, you're not from his tribe, dude. It was just a hunter. But this is the beauty of mythology, is we don't always know for certain from whence they are born. Sorry, that's my side note for at this point. I'll shut up.
No, you're good. That was actually pretty
I'm a
well
nerd.
said.
I'm a nerd, people. I enjoy doing this kind of research.
No, I mean that definitely fits the description in like, when it comes to like the tribes, like how they could have like the I guess the misconception of what those hunters were, like being like a man deer or, some
Right.
mythological creature walking among the land. So I definitely see that. Or hell, I mean even just like let's say just like soldiers walking around like back during between like the American military and the natives fighting back in the day. Like I could see them like hunting for food and see something like that walk around and then tell stories about it.
Right. I mean, for certain, you had there are yes, curses are yes, that is another source of some of the lore from the elder skinwalkers from before colonial expansion or settlement scuba, which is a very good source to tap into. You'll find many of those tales amongst the Oneanta tribe Native Americans, talking about how certain tribal members would be cursed if they died in battle, if they turned and fled, a showing of cowardice. The spirits of the land would punish this cowardice by turning those fallen cowards into lesser beasts that must live this hellish existence halfway between man and animal. And their rage at having been slain by their fellow man and thus trapped in this hellish half existence, they then turn that anger towards who had been their tribe in life. And they end stalking and slaughtering their own people.
Sounds like a spiritual form of purgatory.
Kinda. It's nasty stuff.
So I know everybody brings in like the reference between like Wendigo and Skinwalker. And I'm sure you could touch on this. Like what's actually the difference between the two?
Okay.
I know
The
one's a
primary
result of
difference,
cannibalism, but
yes. Wendigos are the result of people who have been stranded and who are on the verge of death. In their desperation, they turn to any of their other fellow wilderness survivors who are nearby, or even just people who happen across their path. And in their desperation to eat, they kill and eat another human being. This is such an unnatural practice that the spirits of the land themselves become enraged that any man would do this to his fellow man. And to punish them, they curse them with long life and a constant hunger. No matter how much they slay and devour their fellow man, the Wendigo cannot be satisfied. It must continue killing and eating other men. However, as a trade-off or reward, as it were, for killing its fellow man, if a Wendigo kills another cannibal, they become larger, stronger, faster, and they begin to obtain the ability to blend in with their environment. This is a result of the spirit of Anteha, a winter spirit that was said to be the essence of hunger and cruelty in the cold and depraved environment. This was an evil spirit, first referenced in, I think it was, hold up. Let me find it. Sorry, Lee. Geneseo Native American lore. So I did have a side note on the Wendigo because that's a separate project I'm working on right now.
There's a game called. Oh, I was just gonna say there's a game called Until Dawn. I don't know if you've heard of it, but the creature in that game is the Wendigo, and they do a very very good job in like portraying what the Wendigo is capable of and how it hunts and stalks prey.
Yeah, they mostly they hang like they chill out up in trees overhead, and they drop down on their victim, either crushing them or at the very least crippling them so that they can then devour them. Now, there are a couple of different primary attack patterns of the Wendigo as opposed to the Skinwalker. The Skinwalker typically, in most legends, allows itself to be seen first to induce fear because they want to taste the fear in their victim's blood. Whereas the Wendigo attempts to ambush so that it can immediately gain access to the front or the back of the throat. There are various source legends of the Wendigo from various Native American tribes, but all of them have a single component that is an agreement. The first thing they go for is the throat. Every one of them.
So, I don't know if this is true, but like I know we're kind of getting off topic from the Skinwalker per se. But one more question I have about a Wendigo is, like, is it a common knowledge to know that they're blind and have a heightened sense of hearing as well?
This is variable depending on which tribal source mythology you go off of. Some of them, in approximately a third of the lore, they are blind. That is part of what happens when they devour human flesh, is they lose their sense of sight, but they obtain heightened hearing and heightened sense of smell. But in like the other 2/3 of the source lore, they go blind because of the spirit of winter and starvation effectively does not need to see its victims, because in blinding whiteout conditions and wintry conditions where most Wendigo live, they don't need to see, because all they would see anyway most of the time is a blanket of snow and trees. That's it. So they rely on their other senses in order to stalk and hunt their prey.
Yeah, that makes sense because like the game Until Dawn, in the mountains in a snowy environment.
Yep.
So that makes sense.
Well,
all right, well, we're going to carry on with the not deer, though. But I figure it's kind of interesting to bring up the difference between the Wendigo and a Skinwalker.
The comparative legends is always fascinating stuff to dive into.
Service Protocol, SCP Foundation, Cryptozoology Division. These actions should be carried out by anyone inadvertently interacting with SCP-6448 and are necessary for your survival. Please skip to this section with relevant information if your life is...
We'll bring that up here shortly, but that's definitely something interesting to bring up. We'll get to that.
...is under threat. If you notice that a deer seems off, look away and ignore it. If it knows that you've noticed it, it's too late. If you hear your name, whistling, or something else in the woods calling for you, don't acknowledge it. Never acknowledge it exists. Don't respond. Don't go looking for it. Don't call back to it. If you're walking at night and you feel something breathing on your neck or whispering behind you, the key to your safety is pretending that everything is normal.
Sound familiar?
Your survival is dependent on your ignorance. Presently, SCP-6448 are known to inhabit only the Appalachian region of North America. The previous sentence was stricken from the document. History. SCP-6448 was officially assigned anomalous classification in 1980. though they have been recognized by local people since 1947. SCP-6448 is a firmly cemented figure in Appalachian folklore, known colloquially as the not deer due to their striking similarity to the species they imitate. Many locals claim to have encountered instances of SCP-6448 or possess knowledge of an individual who has. A majority of local communities living in rural areas of high activity are aware of the precautions required to avoid hostile encounters, primarily due to urban legends and stories involving the entities. SCP-6448 were previously researched at Site 41, located in an unknown location, North Carolina. On 11/01/1994, a group of 3 SCP-6448 instances broke into the site utilizing a tunnel system carved over an extended period of time. This triggered containment breach alarm systems, and the site entered lockdown protocol. The single instance kept in containment, being prepared for dissection, was lost in the breach and not recovered. Over the following decade, a further 5 SCP-6448 instances would be captured and contained, all of which would escape the site through tunnels carved by other SCP-6448 entities. The decision was made to transfer all instances to Site 44, overseas, to prevent further breaches. Since this decision, no capture attempts have been successful. Addendum 6448 1. Recently recorded civilian encounters. The first reports of SCP-6448 surfaced around the week of 07/07/1947. In the time since the genus's discovery, many members of the public have encountered the entities, though most accidentally stumbling upon them do not alert local authorities. This is typically due to the SCP-6448 instance either merely watching the subject or becoming hostile. The following is a log of all recorded 911 calls related to SCP-6448 phenomena since the year 2000. Date: 02/01/2000. Details: Victim, aged 41, female, dialed emergency services after hearing their name being called from the woods near their home. The victim recounts the vocalization being likened to a scream in a voice that they do not recognize and requested assistance in locating the source. Emergency personnel requested the subject place their phone on the floor outside the home to listen for the alleged sounds. After 2 minutes, a vocalization was heard that was calling to the subject by name, emanating from the nearby forest.
So, yeah, just like we were saying about the term skinwalker. Very, very similar.
Yes. The behavior pattern, as you will see throughout these 911 call logs, is pretty much spot on for the Skinwalker legendarium.
My thing is, though, I mean, I get these are anomalous beings, but, like, how did they manage to tunnel into a site?
Well, this goes back to the reference that the researcher made above in the file, that frequently these creatures are known to, when they break into people's homes, they steal things like silverware and weapons and tools. I imagine that they steal these things because they know how to and can use them.
I mean, I get that, but, like, me thinking about the site itself, like, I'm thinking, like, it's pretty well thick steel or something that's, like, entombing the site itself.
Right. They tend to describe these facilities as having walls that are like 6 or 7 foot thick, concrete with steel blast doors and buttressing.
Right.
Something that you will notice is that they talk about these tunnels that are discovered, but there's not a single instance of them seeing the tunnels being crafted.
That's
Skinwalker Ranch, that's a whole other thing, Scuba. I would listen. Don't worry about it. No, that's not your bad. That's something that I do want us to dive into as a separate sort of sub-series of the deep dives. I think we should.
We'll definitely get into it.
Yeah, we should look at Skinwalker Ranch at some point. To the point where if I had enough paid time off and I could swing it, I would say, dude, you and I go to Skinwalker Ranch for like an in-location deep dive and just completely fuck ourselves up.
Oh my god.
That'll be fun.
Yeah.
Terrifying, but fun.
Subject was instructed to investigate the disturbance themselves and keep services updated on the situation. The victim then begins to walk into the woodland, getting about 50 meters into the underbrush before inexplicably stopping. They claim there to be a noticeably large deer standing in the way of the path. She begins to walk closer, though states it does not move. Subject diverts from the path and begins walking in a different direction. After 30 minutes, no source of the voice is determined. The caller returns to their residence. Date 13/06/2002. Details: victim, age 28, male, calls 911 regarding a home break-in. The caller notes numerous items to be missing from their residence and requests an investigation. Operators dispatch 2 investigators to visit the home and discern a potential perpetrator. The pair note that based on earlier CCTV images, all cutlery, sharp objects, firearms, light bulbs, and a single copy of the novel, The Day After Roswell, are missing. Also noted is that there is a complete lack of any fingerprints at the scene, with no doors or windows having been broken into. Analysis of the home's CCTV footage revealed there to be a 2-hour period of missing film, with the exception of a single frame containing a service nippon on its hind legs reaching towards the camera. Its frontal hooves have been warped to resemble fingers. No footage of the entity exiting the home was discovered. Date: 19/11/2005. Details: a cattle farmer aged 54, male, reported to local authorities the sudden disappearance of over 30% of his largest herd. Response teams searched the nearby area for 4 hours, though found no trace of the cattle. The victim was recommended to set up trail cams and note any unusual activity overnight. At 01:11 a.m., 2 SCP-6448 are seen walking through the field before fleeing. One places an object into the ground, later discovered to be a single fork. A week after this discovery, 200 discarded bovine hooves appear at the location. Date: 04/03/2009. Details: victim, age unknown, gender unknown, dials 911 to request assistance from animal services. The victim is stood within a forest in front of a service elephant, which is violently contorting. The animal is repeatedly ramming itself into a tree, covered in blood and viscera. The victim begins to state, "You'd better get a vet or something, I don't think it's well," before a piercing screech is heard and the line falls silent. Recovered footage depicts the aforementioned animal squirming, seemingly in pain. A viscous churning is audible as a black mass erupts out of the instance, and the video turns to static. Date: 11/10/2012. Details: victim, aged 23, male, is a junior wildlife officer at Cherokee National Forest, Tennessee. They radio their supervisor in early evening regarding a herd of Otocoileus virginianus within the reserve. Supposedly, there is a single animal that upon first glance appears average, though possesses divergent attributes including backward joints, an enlarged abdomen, and forward-facing eyes. Upon stating this, a distant whistle is audible and the victim stumbles slightly. They begin to say, "What the hell? Did it just whistle at me?" before the sound of hooves rapidly getting closer is heard. Notably, the hoof steps did not sound to be in the traditional gallop of a cervid. Date: 12/10/2012. Details: the aforementioned victim's supervisor calls the authorities following the victim's absence from the reserve night shift. Following this, their radio begins to crackle. The victim's voice can be heard on the other end, and he requests the supervisor's attention. He calls regarding a herd of Otocoileus virginianus within the reserve. They claim there is a single animal that, upon first glance, appears average, though possesses divergent attributes including backward joints, an enlarged abdomen, and forward-facing eyes. Suspecting the creature to be a rare genetic malformation, the victim requests their supervisor to come to the location. The supervisor questions the victim about what happened the night previous. There is no reply. Upon the supervisors and law enforcement's arrival at the site, a herd of approximately 80 Odocoileus virginianus was present. A single entity is in the field's center and appeared to be standing separately from the rest of the group. It flees the scene upon realizing the law enforcement's presence. Where it formerly stood laid a park ranger's standard two-way radio.
So, yeah, the whole abdomen thing being bloated. Do you think that this SCP is like a single being or a collective of multiple beings piloting the body of the deer?
It's my suspicion, given given the fact that they have come across situations where there are multiple individual instances of 6448, that I suspect this is a form of reproduction. That it is asexual reproduction in this particular anomaly, this creature type. And I believe that the black corpulescence, as it were, this black blob of goo. I believe that part of the reason they become bloated and distended in the abdomen is when they're getting prepared to split off to reproduce and create more instances of themselves. That's my hypothesis. And I believe that when we do not find these human victims, it's my suspicion that they are a new host for the split off instance of 6448. But that's why some of their equipment, some of their belongings remain behind or in hand of this instance of 6448, that they are kind of going back to an absorbed memory. Like, hey, this was something I used to use when I was human. Potentially.
Right.
I'm just kind of spitballing there.
Do you think maybe like the way that like, because these are the not deer, do you think maybe that the people that are taken and or disappearing becoming disfigured humans instead of deer?
I think it starts off as disfigured humans, but over time, as they grow, as they quote unquote evolve, that they would become more deer-like in order to take on more of the appearance of their creature host or their origin point. Sort of it's similar to in human physiology or physiognomy. We tend to, when we grow up, we become more apparently akin to one of our two parents. Genetically, we only absorb 50% of our mother, 50% of our father.
Mm-hmm.
So as we grow, we will tend to look more like one or the other, but not an exact one-to-one match of the physiognomy. But that's because we reproduce sexually. If these creatures, if these anomalies are asexually reproducing through this kind of blob splitting, they only receive genetic code from a singular parental source. So they, as they grow, as they develop, they would lean towards more looking like a one-to-one match of their creature of origin. At least, again, that's my hypothesis.
Okay. I figured it was more like a parasitic bond.
That's also very possible.
I figured maybe like because like maybe the black goop or whatever that's inside them like pilots like a body, and like no matter what the body is, it's gonna get disfigured and change into some weird instance of the SCP.
Right. More sort of like a Like the creature from The Thing.
Right.
Like
Well,
Carpenter's The Thing.
yeah.
The frame doesn't
yeah,
matter so much.
Right. Well, I mean, the frame can be pretty much whatever the thing wants it to be.
Right. Whatever it is, it'll be corrupted.
Yeah, it eventually shows itself.
Yep.
Okay.
Very possible.
Date 08/04/2016.
Also
Details.
possible.
Victim, age 35, female, dials 911 using a satellite phone, distressed. They state that they are in undisclosed county woods and are being followed. She claims that despite seeing no one for the duration of her hike, she feels as if she's being watched and has heard someone walking behind her at various points in the trip. The victim is unable to give an adequate description of her location, but knows the route to return to her residence. Operators request the victim to return to a point wherein she can provide a sufficient geographic description of her position. The victim remains on the line for the duration of the hike back to a readily used portion of the wilderness trail. Along the journey, various unnatural sounds can be heard. These include footsteps, rock slides, coughing, whispering, and whistling. Nearing the main trail, all woodland noises such as birds and wind cease suddenly, and the victim states she can see a malformed deer carcass coated in a thick layer of black slime-like substance. At this time, human screams can be heard in the distance. Operators request the victim continue and ignore other stimuli. Agents embedded in local law enforcement, suspecting SCP-6448 involvement, notify Gamma-4 to the situation. 20 minutes later, the victim returns to the main trail. Gamma-4, now operating the 911 call, informed the victim to not respond to any further unusual activity and briefly outlined service protocol. For the duration of the victim's journey to her home, 2 sets of breathing are audible. The victim successfully returns to her residence and shuts the door behind her. Now out of sight from SCP-6448, agents inquire upon the victim's address and the victim promptly complies. Operatives instruct the victim to have possession of all firearms and weapons on the premises and to barricade herself inside a safe space with 1 exfil point. The victim swiftly begins grabbing all available weapons and throwing them inside a wardrobe. It is at this time that there is a knock on the front door. The victim does not respond and continues to hoard sharp objects from kitchen drawers. The knocking becomes more violent as the handle is being jostled and shaken incessantly. A voice on the other side repeats the phrase, "Hello, it is me. Hello, let me in a calm manner as the door begins to shake. The victim retreats to her wardrobe armed with a small firearm. Upon sealing herself in the space, the knocking ceases and footsteps can be heard, decreasing in volume. The sound of galloping is audible as the front door caves in. Footsteps can be now heard inside the home. The entity continues to repeat, "Hello, it is me. Hello, let me in," as it searches the small building. A bright light flashes overhead, seemingly circling the house. Eventually, the entity enters the victim's bedroom. Through a small slit in the wardrobe door, the victim can see a Cervus canadensis standing on its hind legs and surveying the room. Its movements are crooked and stiff, seeming to struggle to stand in a bipedal fashion. It slouches down to a quadrupedal crouch, similar to the stance of an arachnid. It inhales heavily, and its head locks on the view of the wardrobe. It is noted as possessing human eyes. It scampers toward the subject and opens the door. A single gunshot is heard. Responders found no trace of either SCP-6448 or the victim. It should be noted that this represents a small fraction of human to SCP-6448 encounters, as the majority of occasions go unnoticed and undocumented. On these occasions, all associated video, photographs, and objects were confiscated by MTF Gamma-4, who also called off public investigation. Cover stories 356 Alpha, Home Break-In, and 898 Gamma, Missing 411 were successfully implemented. Addendum 6448-2, Incident 6448 Alpha. On 29/11/2019, Mobile Task Force Gamma 4, Green Stags, successfully detained and captured an instance of SCP-6448 with the assistance of Mobile Task Force Nu 7 Hammer Down's Heavy Vehicles Division and highly experimental shock rifles.
I'll be right
The
back.
resulting skirmish left a single instance unconscious, which...
I'm sorry?
I'll be right back. I gotta hit the bathroom.
All right. That is correct. You don't ever talk to a mimic. 100%. Man, I gotta say, the knot deer is pretty freaky. There was a video I had seen not too long ago, and there was a deer that was like making really odd movements and looked really odd in general. I gotta find the video, but it was a strange like deer that was at the door. I don't know if it's a real video or not, but like it kind of freaked me out a little bit. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I was trying to see if there'd be a better video, but there it is. This thing.
Hello. She wants to come in, Desson. Cammy, go. Hello. She wants to come in, Desson. Yeah.
What the hell did I come back to?
Yeah. The video I came across one night. Ain't that fucking creepy? Look at this thing.
That is fucked up.
Hello. She wants to come in, Desson. Cammy.
That's just wrong.
Yeah. That's all kinds of fucking nope right there. Yeah, no.
Whole lot of nope.
Whole lot of nope. Definitely a good way to pull out the 12 gauge.
12 gauge or the flamethrower or whatever other weapon you have in hand. Okay, buddy, you want lunch soon?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have a flamethrower, but I can make one.
You really shouldn't be here for this horror show.
Hi.
You saying hi, looking at this weird thing on the screen. You really should not be here.
Cousin.
That is not my cousin. That is a creature from the depths of hell.
Jeez. What's that?
At least I assume you're pointing at the
Daddy,
deer.
how's that noise?
That's the furnace.
Oh, that one? I
Yeah,
got that.
it's the one around the corner. Can you head back?
That guy looks like his mom.
Yeah, well, he really does. Well, My wife and I have both observed this. He actually looks a lot like my brother-in-law did at his age. And brother, I have told you, Brother Cortex, about my brother-in-law, John. Let's hope that he doesn't behave like my brother-in-law in the future.
Yeah.
Was swiftly placed aboard an armored CH-47 Chinook helicopter en route to Site 44 in England to prevent outside assistance. Upon reaching the site, the sedated entity was transferred to a containment cell without incident. The following is a log of events thereafter. Incident 6448, Alpha. Date 30/11/2019. Location, Site 44, Foulness Island, England. Playing log now. SCP-6448 instance is contained within a large reinforced steel containment cell, having just awoken from heavy sedation. Cryptozoology specialist F. Oz stands in front of a large one-way glass window that encompasses the room's south side.
Greetings, SCP-6448.
The instance suddenly bolts upright and stares at the intercom.
Can you understand me? We've seen your genus speak English just fine in the past.
The instance does not respond. It begins licking its arm.
Please, we know your secret.
The instance pauses.
Admittedly, it wasn't exactly well kept. If you just look at yourself for more than a few seconds, it is very clear that you're not normal.
The instance is stood facing away from the window. Its neck swivels 180 degrees, visibly breaking multiple vertebrae as there is an audible crack. It does not blink.
I thought you said this was one way.
The instance's gaze remains locked on researcher Oz.
Are you something imitating deer? It is clear that, if so, you possess basic anatomical knowledge on them, though details are faulty. In fact, a better question would be, how? Assuming you are not what you pretend to be.
The instance opens its mouth, which contains abnormally sharp teeth. Its jaw moves in a manner that seems to imitate speech. No intelligible dialect is heard, rather a sound similar to gagging or choking is audible.
Shall we move on? What I'm more concerned with here is why you take our people. Is it to settle a vendetta? For food? Spite?
The instance blinks for the first time in the interview. The movement is noticeably forced.
Responding is mandatory.
The instance shows no reaction.
If you will not comply, maybe you'd like to see your brand new containment cell. Research. What kind of research? 1947.
The instance suddenly rams the 20-inch thick one-way glass, cracking it slightly. The instance begins to collapse. It contorts violently and begins screaming. Its abdomen bulges and writhes.
Get the studs in here now!
A black, viscous mass of tendrils erupts out of the instance's side. It leaps and squirms around the cell before shattering the viewing window. The remaining carcass is entirely hollow.
Containment breach detected. All personnel report to the nearest safe room. Containment sector 4 last course will cease in 10 seconds.
The tendrilless mass swiftly maneuvers outside of Sector 4 in seconds, clearing the lockdown area. It travels in the direction of the main exit.
Bullseye block initiated. Locking main exit in 5 seconds.
The mass clears the main desk. It shatters the glass on the front exit and disappears into the outside shrubbery. End log. A 2-month-long search proved inefficient in locating the escaped anomaly. Additionally, since this incident, there has been an unprecedented increase of CWD-afflicted deer and UFO reports in the area surrounding Site 44. Further research is ongoing. Okay, I think that about does it for today. Thank you for listening, if indeed you still are, and you are all dismissed. Goodbye.
And once again, to do a tie-in to Skinwalker Ranch with the UFO lights and all of that, it seems as though whenever we run across, especially modern day instances or stories regarding these kind of Skinwalker deer-like entities, there's almost always an accompanying sighting of lights in the sky and potential UFO activity and aliens and just weird stuff creeping up out of everywhere. But the tendrils, the black tendrils exploding out of this captured instance's side immediately put me in mind of something Lovecraftian, something Cthulhu-like. There is an otherworldliness to these creatures that is, in the truest sense of the word, alien.
Mm-hmm.
There's the very other world.
Sounds very like The Thing to me.
Yeah, very much so. So just another side note in terms of source mythology that could tie in to these not deer. Got another cultural notice from Norse mythology, actually. The tale of Skonyard, the Beast Man. This is a legend of a Viking warrior who felled a deer on a sacred island that he and his shipmates landed on. They were desperate. They had not eaten in days, and they were looking to try and find some kind of animal that they could hunt and feast upon. And this lead hunter of the group, Skonyard, he, with his bow and arrow, he felled a deer on this sacred island and carved it up to feed himself and his fellow warriors. But he was the one who killed it. But they needed to eat. They were on the verge of starvation. But unbeknownst to him, when he later on donned this animal's furs, the spirit of the beast overtook him, and he ended up slaughtering his fellow Viking warriors because he had been possessed by this spirit that had been
behind you,
living in the form of this deer. I see you, buddy. And the deer had actually been an animal guardian of this island, keeping mankind off of it. And from then on, Skonyard sailed on that vessel alone to various coastal Nordic villages, ravaging a score of them before this shapeshifter was slain by another young warrior in training who mistook him for a regular deer and thus shot Skonyard in the face.
Sounds very familiar to the Wendigos, essentially. Just like, killing off his other warrior brethren, even though he was taken over by the spirit of the animal that he had slayed.
Basically, it was a revenge kind of thing. Like they weren't supposed to touch this island to begin with. It was supposed to, no mankind was allowed there. And then he killed this spirit, or slayed at least its physical meat puppet, as it were. So basically, the spirit said, "Oh, really? Fuck you!" And then went on.
Really? I'll take you.
Right. It went on a revenge warpath.
Right.
Which goes hand in hand with many Norse myths that if you slay something sacred, it will take revenge on you and your people, and it will go overboard to ensure you don't do this again. Basically leaving the message, hey, fuck with me, you're done.
Yeah. I mean, that's one way to convey your message back,
Yes, called Scorched Earth.
Right.
Pugwudgies. Pugwudgies, I have heard of them in passing. I think actually it's in my Irish fairy tales. I believe I've come across Pugwudgies. Check my appendix here.
Yeah, I'm not familiar. I mean, I've heard the name, but I'm not familiar with like what they are.
474. Okay, 474. Here we go. Oh, that's a reference to another book that I don't actually have. Shit. All right, I'll have to look up and see if I can track down that particular tome. I'm always on the hunt for more folklore and legendarium mythology tomes to add to my collection. But yeah, so the Not Deer is a terrifying little bastard.
Very much so.
And definitely one of my favorite recent SCP editions. Little hairy fellers. I might have to look into that a little bit more. But this is one of those creepy critters that, yeah, we have so many other kind of references to them in various movies, television shows, comic books, cartoons, what have you.
And folklore.
Yeah, folklore and mythology of all sorts. We have had numerous contacts with this kind of creature. And I think one of the reasons why deer would be such an effective and horrifying concept to have to contend with is, particularly early on in the history of this country, one of the primary sources of meat was deer. Venison. Yep. Any hunter will tell you that is like their primary source of protein, of meat, when they are establishing any kind of homesteading or expansion. Yes, they are a cryptid, Scuba. And cryptozoology and cryptid studies oftentimes touch upon mythology and folklore from previous societies and cultures that have been in a particular region prior to the arrival of new settlers. They hear about these stories in passing, and they adopt or adapt their own versions of these stories based on their own new experiences with the local landscape. So you get this new kind of presentation. We see it not only in cryptozoological stories and folklore. You see it in religious settings too, such as when the Romans took over and conquered the Greek islands. They changed many of the gods. Zeus became Jupiter, and Hera became, I think it was Nocturna. You have these gods and goddesses who they change the name and some of the facets of them, some of their stories. But then there are other creatures and gods and goddesses and legends that, for some reason, they don't change at all. The new incoming society or culture decides, that's a pretty cool story. We're going to go ahead and keep that. Or there's so much pushback from the people who were there before saying, you will not screw with this story. We need it. It is vital to us. And they cling on to that and keep it whole. So I'm not exactly sure how that necessarily ties in one-to-one here with the not deer, but it's so close to the original Skinwalker legends that I would have to argue that the Foundation and whoever submitted this article for inclusion into the Foundation's files couldn't get away from how amazing the legendarium is surrounding the Skinwalkers.
Well, that, and obviously the Appalachian folklore of the Skinwalker. It's so widely known. And just like the do's and don'ts of engaging with them.
Especially they don't, if you hear someone crying for help, don't go.
Right.
Don't go looking to help. There are times where
you lock your doors at night.
Yep. There are times when your own beneficent nature can get you killed.
Mm-hmm.
But anywho, I have got to wrap up here soon. The kids are getting antsy for lunch. And it sounds like my wife is losing her mind dealing with them.
Yeah, we'll definitely end it there for sure.
It's a little harder for her today, too, because Dennis, the older boy who first came down here to say hello, he's kind of grounded off of his tablet today for cocking an attitude with her yesterday and being like, I'm the boss. You do what I say. It's like, dude, well, yes, Polly. Yeah, of course she has to be crazy. She's married to me. Just side note, when it comes to Polly, church boy, Polly has been my best friend since I was 12. The gentleman named Razor Maiden there. So when it comes to his taking cracks at me, he's got more than ample justification for doing so, because the man has known me for a very long time. So if anyone has earned the opportunity to take cracks at me, it's Paulie, Razor Maiden.
Yeah, I already ate, so I'm good. I'm just gonna go take me another nap for a while.
There you go.
Kind of like here and there, but I'm trying my best.
That's all right, brother. So, do we have a game plan for our next deep dives, or are we going to do a culling the nerd for our next presentation?
Well, typically in fashion, we would have done the culling of the nerd like today. Yesterday, I was beyond tired, still am. But no, I mean Wednesday we're definitely gonna do something, try to keep back on track. It was just, sort of a sense of trying to get some sleep, and
Yeah.
that kind of fell the way it did.
I get it.
Try to stick to Fridays, just being the culling of the nerd, try to be relaxed and chilled.
Okay.
Laid back.
So we'll figure out what lore or what legendarium we're going to poke into for next Wednesday. Do we want to keep into the SCP realm?
We could poke around. I mean, we could do SCP. We could do anything.
All right. We'll figure that out in the next couple of days, and we will let those of you here in the show who have been with us, we'll let you guys know what our material is going to be before that time comes.
Mm-hmm.
But for my part, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for tuning in once again to the Deep Dives with host Cortex and co-host Byronofsidius. We appreciate your taking the time to join us for this horror show. And just remember, if you're out taking a nice, calming evening stroll, the moon hangs overhead with its brilliant glow. If you happen to come near any woods and you hear, get home and lock the door.
Very much so. Also, just on a note, I don't know if you heard, but the Halo show was canceled.
I heard it got shit canned.
Yep. And Acolyte is not scheduled for another renew of a season.
Nope, they have not got confirmation for renewal on that either.
Yep.
There's a whole lot of projects that are not getting renewed, not getting.
I'm very happy about that.
Yeah, I'm overjoyed, but I am going to make a quick sidebar. This was something I had wanted to bring up, but I wasn't sure if I would do it now or on our next Culling the Nerd, but that's in a full week, and I want to get this out there right now. I mentioned this during the brief little live show I did yesterday, but I'm going to bring it up again so that you folks are aware of it. A lot of folks have been wondering, how is it that Disney can continue to burn through millions upon millions of dollars putting out all of this absolute gobshit material?
180 million, by the way.
How can they justify that expense? Where are they going to get their money back for all of this absolute trash shit tier material? What you should be aware of, and this is something that was brought to my attention by a colleague, and because I can't confirm it, I'm just putting it out there as rumor brought to me by someone who is a fellow storyteller who has been working in the screenwriting rooms in California for the last few years. But we both worked together on a couple of anthologies. That's all I will say in terms of I trust this gentleman. He's been working in the writing space for a long time. So I believe him when he tells me he has overheard people who he works with in writers' rooms joking about the fact that so many people on YouTube have been doing these streams, getting all over the Acolyte and shitting all over Doctor Who and crapping on.
Yeah, that's another
Disney
one was
Star Wars.
Doctor Who.
Well, the reason that they're laughing is because, from what he has overheard, Google has an agreement in place with Disney. These large streams, when they receive super chats, as everyone is aware, super chats on YouTube, 35% of the super chat goes to Google. The rest goes to the streamer. Of that 35%, a large chunk of that money is going directly from Google to Disney. They're utilizing an AI scraping surveillance program put together by Google in order to figure out which shows are getting their super chat money by focusing on Disney properties and criticizing them or praising them. Either or. If the primary focus of the stream is a Disney product, a large portion of the money that Google is getting for that stream is going back to Disney. They are literally monetizing their hate.
So essentially, it's just like cycling back into funding what more bullshit they can come out with.
Right. They're going to be able to justify putting together more movies and
What the fuck?
and shows that do no good audience ratings because it doesn't matter. The ratings don't matter. And this is why I would recommend, if you're going to do a stream shitting on Disney properties, do it either on Rumble or turn off super chats.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is the bigger channels, they want that money, and this is how they make a living. I understand that. I get that. And I can appreciate that because, well, I'm a capitalist. I understand you want to make your money by producing your content. But by opening the super chats to the audience, you're also allowing Disney potentially to siphon off a portion of that money, allowing them to continue producing this absolute dumpster fire garbage made by people who hate you. And you're funding their hatred.
That's fucking insane, dude.
But again, this is only a precautionary note because I can't confirm this. I do, however, find it fascinating that one of the biggest shareholders of Disney is State Street. Not BlackRock, State Street. State Street is also one of the biggest shareholders of Alphabet, the parent company of Google, which owns YouTube. I'm wrapping my tinfoil hat on. The problem is the last 10 years, the only difference between a conspiracy theorist and a realist is about 6 months' time.
Yeah.
Anyhow, sorry. Wanted to get that in there.
No, I mean, it's wild to even like think that, like, you know, just by monetizing what would be considered like a hate train, but like a reasonable hate train for something as bullshit as like what Disney's been putting out or any of the other DEI garbage that's been coming out, like to have what's being monetized for a YouTuber and then have a portion of that being funded into the projects that Disney's trying to put out. It's like unreal, man.
It's how they're mitigating their losses. And I would dare Disney and I would dare Google to show us the books because there's no other rational, reasonable explanation for how they're getting the money to continue making these products.
I mean, Acolyte went as far as like 13% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like
Yeah.
that is insane.
And the metrics for watch time, there's no way you can tell me enough people are watching this shit to justify advertisers wanting to pay to fund that project.
Right.
And yeah, Sam, they're definitely cooking the books. And I want to know why there's even scuttlebutt or why there's even any kind of rumor from someone who works in writing rooms saying, oh, they know they're hated and they laugh about it because they're still making money off your hate.
Yeah, I mean that honestly shouldn't even be possible. That's the whole point of why people don't like it. Like you're funding garbage.
Yeah.
Like that's the whole point of letting it known to be garbage when you lose the money. That's should be the biggest indicator of yeah, we probably shouldn't do that because we lost a fuck ton of money out of that.
Right. The market is supposed to be the solution.
Yeah.
But if the market is being manipulated,
Okay, case in point. This is kind of
we need to
off
know.
topic, but Command and Conquer the game. I'm sure you're familiar with it, Byron.
I know the series, but I've never
It's
played them.
the RTS games. So from back then when Westwood was a thing and they made their original Command and Conquer and Red Alert, all the way up till they made Command and Conquer 4 Tiberium Twilight, are night and day in comparison. So the fact of the matter is, what they had before, like let's say Star Wars, we the fans know what made us love Star Wars, right?
Hell yeah.
The story, everything, the lore, the prequels. I mean, obviously the original trilogy, then the prequels. But the fact of the matter is, we know what made us love Star Wars. So taking that knowledge and kind of applying it to Command and Conquer and how it fell under and basically destroyed itself through the guise of EA. Command and Conquer used to be a very simple base builder game. You take your army and blow up the enemy's base. You build up your army and go to town on the other team's base. Well, when that was the formula for a while for all their games. When CNC4 came out, they got rid of the whole base building mechanic of the game and resorted to these crawler type units that had produced units like tanks, robots, whatever, completely destroying what the original format of the game was entirely. And people are like, "What is this?"
Doesn't that
Yeah.
ruin the entire architecture?
Pretty much. So that's essentially kind of like what I'm getting at is like, you're steering clear of what the fans loved to begin with, thus becoming your new downfall. And unfortunately, because EA owns the rights to Command and Conquer, because they were sold, they bought Westwood back in the day. Command and Conquer is now being put out as mobile games, unfortunately.
Ugh.
So now we're getting the mobile version of Star Wars with Acolyte and other bullshit.
Yeah.
That's just the analogy I'm going to go with, but yeah,
I like that.
It's a very sad downfall.
But I love that analogy, and I think I'm going to have to tweak it a little bit, but I'm going to borrow that. I'll cite you, though, as the source of it.
Hold on one second. I'm actually going to send you a link because I want you to actually check this out at some point. It's a very good watch and or listen to. But it is called The Rise and Fall of Command and Conquer. And the YouTube channel is... Yeah. The YouTube channel is Gamers, I believe, but they spell it in a weird way, GVMERS. And they do documentaries talking about the rise and fall of different franchises and stuff.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Yeah,
Well, ladies and
I would
gentlemen,
recommend it.
thank you once again for joining us for the deep dives with Cortex and Byronofsidius. We look forward to seeing you here once again with us Wednesday morning. And then next Friday morning, we will be back to Culling the Nerd.
Real quick, if we don't come up with anything, I would like to take a look at this little documentary. It's a 26-minute documentary of the rise and fall of Command & Conquer. And I'm telling you, man, watching this, it's kind of painful to watch in the sense of what EA had done to the game. But it's very much worth the watch because it's historical of a downfall. It just goes to show how a vision can be skewed into a mass downfall.
I did not know that, Scuba. Interesting little fact.
Really? I didn't know that either. Huh.
I'm gonna look up the rationale behind that physiologically, evolutionarily.
I mean, I really thought I had kneecaps growing up.
Sam, do you do this kind of shit to me because you know that I will just go down a rabbit hole? She knows me too well.
Like I said, I think this is something we should definitely get into at some point. Whether it be Culling the Nerd or we just straight up do it. Either or.
All right, brother. Sounds good.
Yep.
All set then, brother?
Yeah, we're good, man.
All right.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, peace.
We're out here, y'all. Take it easy.